My grandfather told me, you must be better. You must be not good, not average. You must be better than the best. He made it clear it wasn't a matter of whether you want to succeed or not. You're going to. There was no black driver at that time. There was death threats. If this nigger races in this race, he might not leave alive. They called me Uppity, the uppity nigger, and I loved it. My grandfather, he was the only black plumbing contractor in the city of San Jose. His business was pretty much all white, and he knew he had to be better than his competitors, and he drilled that in us. That was, to me, very important. He started in 1927. By 1960s, he was doing so well that he bought a ranch and left the plumbing business to my dad and my uncle. Because of the family business, my dad had motorcycles, and he had go-karts, and he had sports cars. And that was my introduction. My dad was racing as a hobby.
He competed in amateur racing. We were always exposed to race cars and racing car drivers.
He was maybe about 5 or 6, and he met Dan Gurney. And oh God, he just followed him all over the track.
If a race driver is ever elected president of the United States, it probably will be Dan Gurney.
Dan Gurney, he was such a nice person. He says, okay, let's take our picture. Dan was smiling all over the place. He thought he was a real crack-up.
The Dan Gurneys of the world, the Jim Clarks of the world, they were the reason I wanted to be a race driver. And I knew that at 9 years old.
From then on, he spent his time with the automobiles rather than brothers and sisters.
I had a Lotus Cortina, which is a little two-door sedan.
Every opportunity he would have when he came home from school, first thing he did was go jump in the car.
I knew where the key was. I went up to a windy road called Mount Hamilton Road at 12 years old.
The sheriff called me and said, you know, we got Willy T out in your car. I said, huh?
My mother didn't spank me, and my dad didn't spank me. But they said, you're going to the ranch. If you got in trouble, my grandfather was the person you worried about. It wasn't the law. He was only 5'4", but he was as big as Shaquille O'Neal.
I said, you need to stay out here for a while where you can run a car without it running over somebody.
My grandfather hated auto racing. It was not to be mentioned at the ranch. So you didn't talk about it around him. He thought that being involved in auto racing was spending money recklessly. You had to have a goal, and it better pass the smell test with him. He wanted to know what I was going to do. I told him I wanted to be a Formula One driver or Indy 500 driver. There was no black driver at that time. He said to me, you're a goddamn fool.
Told him, no, you can't do that. And Willy T said, Grandpa, but that's what I want to do. And he says, well, I don't care what you want to do. You can't drive a car.
I built this business to hand over to you so you wouldn't have to work for somebody else, so you could be your own boss. And with him, being your own boss meant everything. You had to be your own boss. I wanted to be my own boss, behind the steering wheel. I wanted to be a race driver. Young drivers from all over the world would all go to Britain and run the Formula Ford Championship.
This is Formula Ford, a late outgrowth of the Formula V division.
Formula Ford is a place where if you have a desire to be a professional motor racing driver, that was where you went. That's the place where you find out if you're real. And if you're good enough, you come out and people pay attention.
I let my parents know that I'm not going to go to college. Look at me going to England, race, Formula Ford. It's like sending me to college. My dad knew the dangers of racing. He would never admit that he was worried about me getting hurt or killed. But he knew it was there. He lost quite a few friends right in front of his eyes, killed right in front of his eyes. He was reluctant, especially as a career. When you do it as a career, you're all in. You're all in. When I got to England, I knew from reading Autosport magazine there was a team that was very successful. It was called Scorpion Racing. And the owner was Mike Eastick. So I drove out to his farm and knocked on the door. He thought I was there to get a job on his farm. I said, no, I'm here to talk to you about driving one of your race cars. If you brought money, whether it was personal money or sponsored dollars, he'd put you in a race car. I paid him with my college money. We shook hands on a deal. 2 weeks later, he had me testing his race car at Mallory Park. If you want to be an IndyCar driver or a Formula One driver, you start at that level. The older model race car, which is what he put me in, costs 200 pounds per race. I finished third in my first race, and right then he said, okay, I want you to go to the newer model.
Coming to get the green flag.
The second race I won, when I called home from England, and said, how'd you do? I said, I won. And there was a pause. You're kidding. I said, no, I won. I was racing against Nigel Mansell and Michael Rowe. And those guys were really tough. Mansell went on to be Formula One world champion. It was my fourth or fifth race. The head of Formula One was there, Bernie Ecclestone.
Bernie Ecclestone took over Formula One, turned it into the world's #2 sport behind soccer, made it a commercial success, billions upon billions.
And a beautiful start.
You can't even quantify how big Bernie Ecclestone is in Formula One.
If somebody was doing well in any of the lower series, they would probably come into GP3 or GP2 and then get recognized and go into Formula One.
And that's why I was there. I wanted to catch their eye so I could be a Formula One driver or Indy 500 driver. I won 6 out of 11 races. I had such a large points lead, I couldn't be beat.
Willy was so dominant with the Scorpion Racing team, he didn't even need to finish the season. He'd earned so many points. Championship was already his.
Once I won my championship in Formula Ford, I was out of money.
You do need some support financially in order that you can get recognized. Because you can't just say, I think what I'm going to do is be a Formula One driver and pop into a car.
Once you start coming out of Formula Ford, getting into Formula 3, that's when things start getting a little bit expensive. Family support, that comes to an end after Formula Ford. You really do need sponsors.
Wanting to be a race car driver, it costs. It costs a lot of money.
A lot of the drivers were being sponsored by their own country. I didn't get that, so I could not go to Formula 3, and I had to come home. When I came back to the United States, I was 22 years old. The next step from Formula 4 to the United States was Formula Atlantic. And I got a phone call from the Long Beach Grand Prix Association. They had a sponsor that put me in my first race in the United States. I didn't have a car that I could win with, but the objective was get my feet wet in the United States. Before every race, there's a driver's meeting. You could feel the tension. In England, there was no animosity about the color of my skin. It was about, hey, let's go out and race. And when I walked into that driver's meeting in Long Beach, not one driver spoke to me, not one. Didn't even look at me. After that, there was nothing, despite what I accomplished in England.
He came back knowing that I just did something, accomplished something that very few Americans have, let alone African Americans. And no one would give him a shot. No one.
I came to Speedway back in 1975, and I was always looking for an angle. We would do crazy things like Robosaurus. He ate 6 cars. Then we had High Wire Act. When Jeff Bodine came down here from Chemung, New York, and I used to say, Earnhardt's Robert E. Lee and Jeff Bodine is Grant. For a while there, they sold a lot of tickets because there was a Civil War kind of aspect about it.
I get a phone call from a promoter in Charlotte, North Carolina.
If 30% of the population is black, you want to get some of those people in it.
He said, I'd like to put you in a car. I did not know he was the blonde Don King.
Humpy Wheeler was smart enough to say, this would be great for our series.
We're going to get some attention down here, and you're the guy that's going to bring it.
I knew it would work if we got the right black race driver. And his record was pretty darn good considering the equipment he had to work with. I've had a lot of guys in cars out there just try to see what they can do. Usually it takes them 2 days just to figure out how to get through the first turn. He ain't wasting any time. He just got out there the 4th lap, he starts running pretty steamy laps. I said, you're gonna crash this thing if you keep going. He says, that's the only way you go fast, get it loose.
So Humpy and Willy announced they're going to get Willy into the World 600, one of NASCAR's biggest events.
I didn't think about any of the political or social ramifications. It didn't cross my mind, but he knew.
You think about that time period we were in the 70s. Everything was supposed to be integrated and yakety-yak across the country, but it wasn't. There was still a lot of segregationists.
Next week, I'm gonna put Jews in it.
Willy had challenges in front of him that other race car drivers didn't. You're coming into a sport where the majority of the people are white, and they have been from its conception.
You go to a racetrack and 75% of the infield was still waving rebel flags.
They might call it the United States Racing Series. It's a Southern Racing Series. Daytona's down there. Talladega's down there. That is all white.
Humpy said, there's a few people that are not gonna like you down here. I said, well, they're just gonna have to get used to not liking it.
No, that's not a place to go. Not if you're black.
That weekend, there was a big race in Talladega. And when we got into the pits, people were actually spitting on the ground near me. It wasn't a very warm welcome, and it really started to piss me off. If you're such a badass, don't spit, start swinging your fist.
The clash of taking a West Coast, Northern Californian black man, dropping him into the deep South, and expecting him to know the Jim Crow playbook, and that he's not expected to be proud to be his own man, and thinking that's going to be a success? I don't know how anybody actually thought that was going to work.
And so I said, okay, you want to have a reason not to like me? I'm going to give you one.
All the drivers there, all the crew chiefs are there, some of the car owners and some press guys. A hand went up, an African-American hand, in Talladega, Alabama. And Willie said, "Can you pass in the grass?"
They had a real narrow pit lane, and the drivers were coming out of the pits. They were nearly running into each other.
You stood at the drivers' meeting and said to the Grand National competitors, "I have one question. Can you pass in the grass?" Do you regret having said that?
Oh, no, because it was probably one of the most intelligent questions ever asked in a Grand National drivers' meeting.
Chief Stewart was a card-carrying member, and his face tightened up with rage.
Boy, that was a huge mistake.
There was death threats that were called in. If this nigger races in this race, he might not leave alive.
It was not only that call, but we got a lot of other calls. If you let that blankety blank run in the race, I am going to kill you.
My grandfather believed in right and wrong. You don't turn the other cheek when you're right. You do not walk away from that.
Things just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So I sat Willie down. I said, "Willie, maybe next year or the year after, but this is not the time to do it. This place is too inflamed."
He was definitely fighting an uphill battle, especially being the personality that he was.
That kind of ended, as they say, the Ballad of Willie T.
Humpy had to pull the plug, and I wish he hadn't. In England in 1977, I met Muhammad Ali. From then on, he sort of took me under his wing. He said to me, "You're going to deal with some challenges for one reason only. You're not in basketball. You're not in baseball. You're in an all-white sport. What gave me resolve was thinking about my grandfather and what he taught me. And then there was Muhammad Ali and his 3.5-year layoff where he couldn't make a living. They took his livelihood away. I thought about those two men, and I thought, all right, don't give up mentally. You might not be in a race car, but don't give up. Don't quit on yourself. Because the only person gonna beat you is you. No one was jumping to put me in a race car. I didn't want to be working for my dad. I didn't want to be in that business, but I had to. Everything I achieved in England was meaningless. I went from driving a racing car and winning races to driving a service van for my dad. It was devastating. An acquaintance, my dad's company was doing a job on a building that he owned. He asked me to go to a race with him. And I said, no, I don't want to go. He says, well, they're having a Can-Am race in Laguna Seca in Monterey. And would you go? I said, no, I don't want to go. He says, come on. He said, I'll drive you down. Just walk me around. I've never been. Went down there, and I was walking through the pits, and I met Jim Truman. I didn't know who Jim Truman was. He said, I own Red Roof Inns.
And Jim Truman has moved up into 4th place right now.
One of the great sportsmen. Jim Truman's life was really all about IndyCar and Bobby Rahal. But given the chance, Jim would absolutely spend some of his money to help give chances elsewhere.
My version of success is to see how many other people I can help be successful.
He says, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'm out of racing. He said, yeah, I know. He says, why? I said, no backing. All right, I want you to call me next week. Call me Tuesday. I asked him, I said, are you serious? He says, call me. What kind of cars do you want to race? And I said, well, I want to continue to do Formula Atlantic. You find the team, and if you like it, tell me how much it's going to cost.
The Formula Atlantic Series was in many ways the preeminent road racing series in North America in 1982. It was the most similar to what a race driver would be driving anywhere else in the world at the same level.
My first Formula Atlantic race, I ran in the top 6, and next year I put it on the pole. And the guys that were in that race were Al Unser Jr., Michael Andretti, Jeff Brabham.
Willy qualified 0.3 of a second faster than the entire field. That surprised me and everybody else. The only person who wasn't surprised was Willy.
In front of Formula One, in front of Bernie Ecclestone, in front of the elite of the sport, with no time, put that son of a bitch on the pole. I knew then. I said, I'm as good as anybody in the sport. Took off, and I had a good lead.
He led more than half of the race. But what took us out was the failure of the engine.
And I could feel the engine start to fade. If it wasn't for mechanical failure, I might have won the race.
The reason that engine failed was because it had something like 1,800 miles on it before we even started the race. Everybody we were beating, they had a brand new engine with 100 miles on it, and it was special for Long Beach and much better power and torque than our engines.
But it didn't matter. I knew I was back. You all saw it. Now what do you have to say? What do you got to say now? Where's the deals? Where's the phone calls? What are you scared of now? Nothing happened. No deal. So I worked in the family business. That was hard. The end of 1982, 2 days before Thanksgiving, the phone rang, and it was Paul Newman.
Paul Newman took racing really seriously. He wanted to be respected as a driver.
The only thing that I ever found any grace in was an automobile.
I first met Paul in the pits. It was brief, and he said, keep up the good work. I did not know that Newman was actually paying attention until I got that phone call from him. Hey, kid, I got a deal for you. I know you like Formula Atlantic, but the Trans Am Series is an opportunity for you to become a paid race driver. It's going to be a first-class team. Think about it and let me know. I said, no, I've already thought about it. If you recommend it, I'm doing it. He says, all right, you're going to get a call from Budweiser. They got a few hard asses there, so if there's any problems, call me.
SCCA Trans Am wasn't as big as IndyCar, but it was definitely popular.
The Atlee Racing was sponsored by Budweiser. For Trans Am at that time, it was state of the art. And when Paul Newman called me and recommended this Trans Am, which I didn't know anything about Trans Am, I was blown away. But I knew he knew I could go fast. That he knew. He said, I'm not helping myself here because I'm going to be racing against you, and I know how fast you are.
They go into turn number 1, and Paul Newman, from third starting position, sneaks to the inside and passes Willy T. Ribbs, but Ribbs grabs the lead back.
But I'm driving a racing car for a different reason than you are. I enjoy it. It's my hobby. You drive a racing car to put a roof over your head, and that's why you need to be in that car. took 5 years for me to be in this position, to be a paid pro driver. This was an opportunity for me to not have to go back to where I was. I didn't want to go back to driving a plumbing van. The difference between a Formula Atlantic car versus a Trans Am car is night and day. To go fast in a Formula Atlantic car, you had to be smooth. The Trans Am car, the engine's in the front. It's a big, high horsepower car with big tires on it.
Trans Am cars of that era were absolute handmade monsters. 800 horsepower engines. These cars very quickly told you whether you had the skill to get the most out of them.
Being on the ranch, sliding those trucks and vehicles and all that, I mean, I learned car control at an early age, and that's what you needed with that Trans Am car.
Willy ended up being way faster than I expected, but I was certainly hoping for.
Then I had a good teammate by the name of David Hobbs.
David Hobbs is a very accomplished driver. Won a lot of races.
Indy cars, Indy 500, Le Mans, just everything. World-renowned race car driver.
The first race was at Moroso Park in Florida, and I met Willy, and Willy was driving the second car. And he was a very nice, personable young guy, and practice showed he was pretty quick, too.
I was the designated number 2 driver.
David Hobbs was the number 1 driver, period. There was no argument. There's no question. There is a hierarchy of how things are done. The number 1 driver is going to get the number 1 equipment.
You get the best engines, you get all the best components. In auto racing, the title teammates really doesn't apply because you're trying to beat your teammate more than you're trying to beat the other teams, just to establish who's going to be top dog in the team.
There was a motor improvement that David got, a next generation intake manifold to perk his car up a little bit.
A real super motor, right? Now going David's car, you know, and then the one that was really good, but not that good, but going Willy's car.
If you were to put it on a clock, the number 2 driver is going to be a half a second slower than the number 1 driver. And it's designed that way.
He didn't have the car David had, whether there was an order or not.
The deck is stacked against you. You have to be very determined.
My mindset was like my grandpa taught me, that I had to be better. And I wasn't going to let David Hobbs get in the way of that. He was the number 1 driver until we got to the first race. When qualifying was over, I was on the front row. He was behind me, and that didn't go over well. His fish and chips weren't tasting too good.
Dave and Willy were neck and neck. I mean, they didn't have any fear. They were going to be going for the lead pretty much no matter what it took.
I led the race until I had a flat tire. Second race was Summit Point, West Virginia. Hobbs, he had that look on his face like, I'm coming for you. That's when my crew chief said to me, I heard you were fast, but we had no idea you were that fast. I said, you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait till I learn this thing. I said, I don't even know the car yet. The fourth race was in Portland, Oregon.
Willy and David went to the front, and Willy took his first lead in a Trans Am race.
I was starting to learn how to control tire wear, and I just drove a smart race.
It was just a good hard race, you know. If he would have won, I wouldn't have felt bad, and I hope he doesn't feel bad with me up front.
It had been so long to get to Victory Circle.
Going from a Formula Atlantic car to a Trans Am car, this is one of those things that might take someone a couple of years to figure out the nuances. How will he adapt to this so soon? I genuinely don't know.
It was my first professional win, and it was awesome. It felt good. There was no looking back after that. I was making no bones about I'm here to win. And I'm not number 2.
His rookie year became a thing known for winning. He made that statement right away. Guy in a race car, Tough-ass series, badass competition, kicking the shit out of them more often than not.
Willy was unbeatable in a Trans Am car. He just flew.
He was definitely the #1 driver, and I'm not sure that the team realized how fast Willy could be.
As the year progressed, it was apparent that Willy was a very, very fast driver. But he certainly didn't make friends very easily, and he was very abrasive.
Between me and my buddy David Hobbs, it was personal. David knew that.
Willy was a polarizing driver, and he tended to torque some of the more delicate drivers. Some guys didn't like it. He had a hard time dealing with them.
Even if you are good, you know, Jimmy Clark was the best, but he didn't make this known at every breath he took.
I'm one of the best drivers in auto racing, period. Black, white, Oriental, or Hispanic. Ray Charles can see that.
There are folks who either love that kind of personality, and there are those who don't. A.J. Foyt, 4-time Indy 500 winner, punch you in the mouth as quickly as he'd say hello to you. I don't hear folks saying they hate him.
It wasn't about racing. It was about, you're not towing the subservient line. That was the attitude the team manager, John Dick, gave me. You're lucky to be here. John Dick was Hobbs's boy.
It seemed as if John might not have cared for Willy's showmanship ways, and I think the fact that he was as fast as David might have increased the friction.
He wanted Hobbs to be the absolute #1. Well, that wasn't happening. So halfway through the '83 season, the team manager and I, we didn't talk at all.
So this is just literally a case of, you don't belong here.
I was called into the office and asked if I thought Willy should be let go.
Second to the last race was Riverside, California. Hobbs, if he won the race, could clinch the championship. Before the race started, the owner asked me to finish second to Hobbs. And I said, no. He says, I would like you to finish second to David Hobbs. You're under orders. And I said, all right, I'll do it, but you pay me first place money. He said, no, I'm not gonna do that. I said, well then, no, I'm not gonna finish second. You guarantee me first place money, and then I'll take a powder. Right before I got ready to put it in gear to move off, he said, okay. Hobbs won the race, clinched the championship. The next race was Las Vegas, and I left him.
Ribb's coming out of turn #1, grabs the lead.
It was cake.
Memorize that number and color, 28, red and white, Willy T. Ribb. But the checkered flag comes out, and it is Willy T. Ribb winning the Caesars Palace Grand Prix for Trans Am cars.
I won Rookie of the Year.
In the end, I won the championship, and he was not very happy and made it pretty known.
When I left Las Vegas, I knew who the man was in Trans Am. I was looking forward to 1984. I had championship on my mind. We were not going to be with the Camaros. We were transitioning to the Corvette. It was a whole different chassis and suspension geometry, and I was looking forward to it. I came back as David Hobbs' teammate, but not #2. And I made that clear. Road Atlanta was the first race of the year, and I knew there was a new driver that was coming into the series named Bob Lobenberg, and I knew that he was a bit of a pop-off. Sunday morning warm-up, went out on the track. We had an issue. We were going down into the dip, about 190 miles per hour. He's right next to me, and he forced me off the road.
When someone runs someone else off the road, it's kind of like pointing a gun at him and pulling the trigger.
I ran down to his car, and I yelled at him, and I hit him in the helmet.
If a driver was out there driving and somebody cut him off, at the end of the race, they fought it out.
And there's a fight between Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison.
Every night at the local track, we'd have a good fist fight after the race or in between the races or something. That was just part of racing.
Muhammad Ali told me you might have to take care of yourself. He said, know how to fight. So that's what I went and did. I was in condition to go toe-to-toe with anybody at the racetrack. Now, the confrontation I had with Lobenberg was a Deacon Jones head slap. Might hurt his feelings, but it didn't hurt him.
John Dick went down to say, hey, you can't do that. Then Willie had an altercation with our John Dick.
That provided the out for the team to part ways.
I was fired. Fired. What we had on the track, that was between me and Lobenberg. We're two men, let us get it handled. You people stay out of it. And that's how it should have been left.
You want to be successful, you got to do what you're told. And Willie's just never been that kind of person.
Here we go again. How long is it going to be before I drive again? The phone rang, and it was a German accent. It was Michael Kranefuss, the director of Special Vehicles Operation of Ford Motor Company. If you want, we are very interested in you to come to Detroit because we would like to put you in a car. I have Edsel Ford on the line. And then Edsel came on, and he says, you can be Willy T. Ribbs. We just want you to win. Sunday night, I was unemployed. On Monday morning, I was employed. I was on an airplane heading to Detroit, to Jack Roush's facility.
He's an interesting character. He's a PhD mathematician. Really strong opinion on how things should be, for better and for worse.
Brilliant mind. He would never be accused, though, of having any social graces.
He took me around and showed me his dynos and told me that you're going to have horsepower. He's got engines in there running for 48 hours straight, almost psychotic with his focus on engine power. I missed 4 races because Roush and Ford were building me a brand new car.
Missing the first 4 races has made it impossible for me to win the championship, but it's not impossible for me to win this race.
Looks like Willy T. Ribbs is followed by Greg Pickett and David Hobbs in the Diatley Corvette.
There's the leader, Willy T. Ribbs, and the number 64, Roush Protofab Mercury Capri.
It was effortless to get in that car and go fast. It had massive power, great handling characteristics that were better than Diatley had.
And we have a winner of the Texas Challenge Trans Am.
There was a lot of talk about the track conditions. How was the track for you?
Fantastic. I mean, it was better than my bed at home.
As we were going to the press room, I walked by the Diatley pit. I looked at my old mechanics, Pat McFall and Jeff Swartz, and they smiled. They were happy because they knew what went on.
One of my professional regrets was not following Willy to Roush, because you want to hitch your wagon to an exceptional talent, and Willy was an exceptional talent.
Even though Willy has only competed in 3 races this year, he is 6th in the point standings. He finished 2nd in Detroit and has won the last 2 races.
After my 3rd victory, I thought, I got to do something special.
Helio Castroneves climbs the fence.
Listen to the crowd.
Alex Zanardi did the donuts. Before them, Willy T got on top of his roof and did the ollie shuffle.
I loved Willy T's attitude. I loved it when he won the race and got on the roof and did the ollie shuffle. That was Willy.
I was doing it for the fans. Now, if you don't want me to do that, then beat me.
Our leader once again, Willy T. Ribbs, out in front.
10,000 people on one mountain, 10,000 on another, 15 in the bleachers, all to come see this big talking driver, Willy T, could win again.
There weren't really many people that were used to drivers that would talk trash and get out there and get in front of the cameras. A lot of people weren't used to that.
Willy says, press is press. Bad press is still press.
At the time all this was happening, it was almost impossible for most racers not to have a racial aspect to it. You know, a white guy wouldn't do that.
Who does this black son of a bitch think he is?
People talk behind our backs about, you know, what are these in people here for? You know, they don't belong here.
He's throwing it in our face. He's uppity.
You guys, what do you expect me to do? You expect me to be a second-class citizen to you? You are not entitled over me. And that was the reason they called me uppity. The uppity nigger. And I loved it. Because that's who you're going to be dealing with.
There's one team that I worked for. We weren't even in the series Willy was racing in. I'm just sitting there listening to this guy that I work with use the N-word like it's Willy's first name.
The old guard, the old mechanics in the sport, that was my name. It wasn't Willy T, it was nigger. I used to go in the bathroom stalls, see it all the time. Willy T nigger ribs. I thought that was funny. Okay. I'm gonna give you an opportunity to write it even more when the race is over. You wanna be mad? I'm gonna give you more reason to be mad. I won 4 out of the 8 races that I competed in 1984. Final race of the year was Las Vegas. After the race, a guy comes up to me and says, Don King would like to meet you.
Don King was regarded as one of the sport's biggest scumbags, but he was also at the height of his power. So when Don King calls, you take it, because this is a person who could make you a star.
Willy T, sit down. And he went right to it. You are the Muhammad Ali of auto racing. I'll make you a superstar. My ultimate goal was IndyCar. I knew Don King could help me get there. His lawyer, Charles Lomax was his name, sent the contract, and it was the most bizarre contract I'd ever seen. The options were all in his favor. The percentage was insane. He had an open-ended expense account. It took over 6 weeks just to get the contract reasonable. We were Xing out full pages. We flew back down there. Don King's lawyer looks at my lawyer and says, fuck these niggers. My lawyer, he couldn't say anything. He didn't want to get into inward conflict. I went Henry Ribbs on him. Look, you Jerry curl idiot. These fighters that you guys sign can't read and write. And they're honored to be in the company of Don King. I'm honored to do business, but I'm not honored to be in your company. Lomax, he says, Don, we don't need these son of a bitches. Fuck them. I don't want you to sign it. But if you want to sign it, you sign it. I looked at Don and said, no guts, no glory, Don. He signed it. Don announced that he was representing Willy T. Ribbs. And Don went to work right on it. He had a connection at Miller Brewing Company. He called him, he says, I need you guys to put Willy T. Ribbs in Indy 500. I went to Indy. It was like being on a date with the hottest girl on the planet. Your tail was wagging, baby. My tail was like a goddamn bird dog.
Gentlemen, start your race.
He just passes him. He just drove past.
Checkered flag
flag for Rick Mears. He's won the Indianapolis 500 with a hand in the air.
I became a fan of Willy T's immediately. As an African American, you didn't have a lot of options as it relates to seeing somebody who looked like yourself on the racetrack. On the maintenance crew, you probably had 25 African Americans. So the time that we found out that Willy was coming, there was a huge buzz. And he told me, he said, if it can be done, that he was going to do it.
Well, Willy T is at Indy. Is that your slogan for this year? Come on in here, young man. Congratulations. Your moment has finally arrived at Indianapolis.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to be here, and it's a big moment for me. Hopefully, we'll be in shape to do a job.
Before every Indy 500, every team goes to Phoenix a month before, and they practice and they test. I got none of that. None.
You got to practice with it and test with it. That means you can physically go try to make your race car good. And that's what he didn't have.
It was rushed together, show up at the racetrack.
The new team, owned by Sherman Armstrong of Winchester, Indiana, was not put together until about 48 hours ago, and the new March chassis was not ready for testing.
Don King brought Miller beer to the party for Willy T's first Indy 500 attempt. Unfortunately, partnered with Sherman Armstrong's team, you could not have brought that money to a team that cared less about putting a black man in the Indy 500.
Paul Leffler was the chief mechanic, and the guy wouldn't talk to me. I got no information. I got no technical information.
People don't realize first gear at Indianapolis is over 90 miles an hour.
You're driving at over 220 miles per hour down the front straightaway to Indianapolis.
And you're looking into turn one down there, you look like you're driving into a dead-end street. Can't see around it, you can't see on the other side. It looks like a dark problem.
You had a big risk of getting hurt.
Paul didn't say, all right, this is the stage I want you to do, and this is what you should feel. It was get in the car, just drive around. And I did not understand what I was doing.
All he needed was a good car and somebody to work with him. And I teach him like at Indianapolis. There's 4 corners, but they're all different.
Willy T indicated that there was somebody on the team that would prefer not to have had him around.
If you're not getting along with the engineer, it's real easy for him to make you look bad.
The engineer's gonna prove that he's right and you're wrong, it doesn't matter, and he's gonna, you're done.
It felt eerie dealing with the guy, like he was an executioner. Driving on a road course is one thing. Driving around Indy is totally different. It has nothing to do with how much balls you got. It's got everything to do with how much brains you have.
Indy is so fast. The dangers are so great. If you make a minor mistake, you could be in the wall, and you could take off half the side of the car.
Other guys got killed in the race car. Sometimes 2 in one night, sometimes 2 in one wreck.
You've got to have brains at Indy. The ones with balls are dead. They fitted me into the car. I was up too high, and it wasn't explained to me that the air going over the top around surface causes lift.
Windscreens made out of plastic doesn't sound like much, but depending on how high it is or how low it is, really affects the buffeting on a driver's helmet. You've got this 200-mile-an-hour wind that's throwing your head around.
When you get in a car that's probably not handling really good, and all of a sudden you're asked to go through turn one flat out or almost flat at 220 miles per hour, you start thinking about your well-being a little bit. That thing was a bucket that I wouldn't have sat in. I don't care who got in that car, it would have scared the shit out of them. There was a lot of guys on that team at the time that Willy was driving for that did not want to see Willy in that race car. They were basically forced to prepare that car for Willy to show up. They didn't want to be there for whatever reason.
This stupid little windscreen put on the car intentionally low It's there, there's no question that it's there, but you really have to be an insider, very discerning person to know that it is too low. And as you're coming up to turn one, a corner that has killed far too many people, imagine getting there at 200 miles an hour, your head moving around, and you can't actually focus your eyes on the corner to turn and hit that apex.
My mechanics, they were good people, but they take orders from Paul Leffler. I knew he was the most racist individual I had met so far. He'd never seen anybody like Willy T. Ribbs. I felt helpless. I called Jim Truman. I said, Jim, what do you think? He says, get out of there. And so I left.
And by noon on Saturday, Willy T packed up and gone home.
The thing about it is, you know, you can get hurt here, and you got to do things right. If it doesn't feel right, then you don't run here.
And the press crucified me. The drivers knew that Willy T. Ribbs wasn't chicken.
I never thought for a second that he was afraid of the speed.
Willy, as a driver, was certainly capable of driving anything that IndyCar could have thrown at him.
Even though we knew the circumstances, Willy was basically thrown into the fire on that deal, and it was a no-win situation for him.
People were waiting for him to fail. They were waiting for him to fail.
All they're looking for is confirmation of their beliefs, that you don't belong.
Chicken and ribs, that was on the menu for the 1985 Indy 500.
That was the first time really, you know, in Willy's career that he got laughed at.
Got a lot of criticism for walking away from that, but he wasn't about to kill himself.
With Willy's first attempt to make the Indy 500 ending in a sad and honestly somewhat embarrassing fashion, he went back to a place that he knew, where he was comfortable. It was Trans Am.
The teams, they asked me, well, who do you like as your teammate in 1985? Do you want to stay with Pickett, or do you want Wally? So I said, Wally. I just liked him. He was a clean race driver, and I knew he was fast.
In the first couple races of the 85 season, we were there to kick everybody's asses.
First 5 races, Willy and Wally take 3 wins, and they move into the 6th race at Portland. The point standings coming into Portland, you had Willy in first, Wally in second.
It was a pretty epic battle between Willy and I knew if I made one mistake, he was going to pounce.
Wally, he did beat him in Portland, and Willy finished second, which kind of woke Willy up a little bit.
And that's really when things changed between Willy and I. I think Willy just said, you know what, I might have to deal with this guy. I don't believe we said 2 words to each other the rest of the season.
Halfway through the 85 season, Wally and I were really competitive with each other. We were racing each other in practice. One particular race, we were coming out of the hotel at the same time to go to the race that morning, and we were both in rental cars. I know Days of Thunder took that scene from us.
We kind of looked at each other, and that was it. We tore those rental cars up. We were in the median, we were in the grass, we were banging off each other.
We were actually going down the opposite lane. My oncoming car came by me on my right.
If we ever got caught doing what we were doing on that road from the hotel to the racetrack, we would have been thrown in jail forever.
After 10 miles of that, pulled in, brakes were smoking.
We got out of the cars at the same time. It was just kind of like, in all the races and all the years I raced against Willy, that was the best race that we ever had.
In Detroit, the Trans Am race ran with the Formula One race right around the Ford building. Bernie Ecclestone is over because of the Formula One.
I didn't want to be in Trans Am for the rest of my life. I wanted to move on to my ultimate goal. Don King flies into Detroit. Don says, I want to see Bernie Ecclestone. And you should have seen the look on the face of Roush.
It wouldn't be too strange to assume that that rubbed Jack Roush the wrong way.
We go up to Bernie's room. Bernie looks at Don and says, what are we going to do with our boy Willie here?
He's going to be the world champion, Formula One world champion. Ah, good. I said, well, that's handy. It's nice.
It was planned when Trans Am season was over. I was going to go and test his Formula One car in Portugal.
Jack Roush was always known to be a very possessive person. Someone who, if you drove for him, you were his. If someone like Jack finds out that Willy T has aspirations to be somewhere other than his car, that could definitely set some bad things in motion.
There were some components that were put in Wally's car. I could not understand why I was not getting off the corners. And before the race, there was a gear that was put into my car. A second gear that was so tall, the thing stumbled coming off the corners. No one knows how it happened, but it happened.
Willie became very, very upset about all of a sudden one car go down the straightaway and just pull away. Identical cars. Not one has like 20 more horsepower.
If he had an engine that had 2,000 miles on it and this thing's going to pitch any time, I'd put it in Willie's car. Jack Roush was intentionally not helping him.
It wasn't long into the race that the engine detonated.
Ribbs is all over the road. He's obviously in bad trouble.
When Jack Roush saw Don King come into the picture, that was it. They knew that I wanted to go somewhere after 85. My relationship with Roush was starting to fail.
Not everybody loved Willie. And there's plenty of rednecks working on race cars, and they had a problem with the color of his skin, and I'm sure the way he was acting. But I never remember anybody saying, oh, well, we're going to put the screws to Willie this weekend. All I knew was Willy T. Ribbs was a damn good race car driver that I had to beat.
When you have a driver drop off out of nowhere, you're going to start to ask why. Is it the equipment? It's rarely the driver, I can tell you that.
Willie's attitude was, you give me a car and I'm going to take it up front.
It was either feast or famine. Either you won or you had a mechanical issue. I won 8 races. 51% of the laps I led.
Wally won the championship. And Willie finished second.
I had 4 mechanical failures that shouldn't have happened in the engine. There was a motorsports journalist that wasn't a Willy T. Ribbs fan. And he said to Ian Brown, did you really think they were going to let that nigger win a championship?
From his standpoint, it probably felt like it's me against the world.
I knew I was not going to be with Roush after 1985. And I just got to the point where I'm not going to go nose to nose with this guy. I'm just going to let it go. December of 1985, I fly to Portugal. It was a full-blown Formula One test.
First black man to test a Formula One car. It's lighter than an Indy car. Power could almost be double. At that point in time, I can't think of any other vehicle on the planet Earth that would have been more violent, more demanding than a Formula One car.
Obviously, the right thing to do is to see if he's quick or not quick, or if he can, whatever it is. So we had a test session set up for him, put him in the car to see how he performed.
I'd never been in a Formula One car. Bernie's team manager, he says, I want you to run this time. I kept running and I kept getting down in the time. And so he says, all right, I'm gonna put on a set of tires and I want you to go out and put this time down. I went a second under the time that they wanted me to do. I came in, he says, great job. He says, you can get out. That's all we wanted to see. And I was to find out later, he bet Bernie that I would not get under the time that they had for me.
And we were quite surprised, and happily surprised as well. And I thought, this is somebody we can get on with and make it all happen.
So after I came back from Portugal, got a call. We can't put you in the team.
I'd have loved to have had a black world champion in our team. That would have been, for me, quite magic.
The sponsor was Olivetti, which was Italian, and they wanted Italian drivers. Here we go again. I got a call from Bill Gardner, who owned Dyguard Racing, a NASCAR team. And he said, I'd like to have you come race for us. Miller Brewing Company was full-blown sponsor of Dyguard. And when I got there, Miller Brewing Company left.
Willie heads back to NASCAR, and you know what he finds? Absolutely nothing has changed.
Once again, Jim Truman from Red Roof Inns gave us some money to do selected races. My first stock car race was North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, Clan Country. And they announced the driver lineup. When they announced my name, I was booed. Blood-curdling boos. Dale Earnhardt looked like he was embarrassed that they were booing.
I can't imagine there was many people that were going to be pulling for Willie T. They were going to be pulling for him to wind up in the wall.
The old adage is, the Civil War is dead, but still smoldering.
Welcome to NASCAR.
Willy T. Ribb has won in other groups of racing. I'm sure he'll win here.
Before the race, I was told Jim Truman was sick, and he was fighting it. He had cancer. Bobby Rahal had won the Indy 500. Jim Truman was very weak. He could barely stand up, but he was there at the race.
It was a tough race. All he said when he went out is, this one's for me, and he did it.
Not long afterward, he passed away. That was hard, because he was the guy that got me out of the dark. He got me out of the dark. After the first race, we did 2 more races. The final dagger was Watkins Glen. It was a road course, and that was a race that I could win. The engines that we had from Robert Yates, every one of them blew in 3 to 4 laps. This was just testing only.
He ran into probably a lot more opposition, just people that would rather not have him around.
They knew at Watkins Glen, Willy T. Ribbs was going to be a threat, and Willy T. Ribbs would probably win. NASCAR knew it. Bill Gardner knew that this was my best opportunity to win a race, which would help us get a major sponsor. Never in my life have I ever heard a team blowing up that many engines and having that big a failure without the engine builder flying to the track and finding out what's going on, especially after the second engine. Why didn't he come up there? Right after that, the engine builder, Robert Yates, became a team owner. I wonder what kind of deal was made. Bill Gardner got put out of business in 2 days. 2 days, he was out of business. We had no more engines left. And that was the end of my NASCAR career.
We are underway in the Watkins Glen 300, and look at Willy T. Ribbs. Willy T will be on the inside. A good car length advantage over Dennis Ossie in turn one.
Chuck Looper, who I was very close to at Roush, was working for a privateer owner who had a car in IMSA. Then they had an awesome engine builder, Ryan Falconer. And Roush was in IMSA. And Falconer says, I want to kick the shit out of Roush. Roush can't outbuild me. I said, you're going to get your wish.
But look at this. Ossie and Willy T are kind of pulling away right now.
In IMSA, an endurance race, something where you tend to have co-drivers in most instances, it's going to be 2 hours, 4, 6. That's a new chapter for Willy.
The checkered flag for Dennis Ossie. He's won the Watkins Glen 300. Ribbs comes in second, and down in the pits, you can bet there's a big smile on Dan Gurney's face.
Dan Gurney's Toyotas ended up beating me. I finished second. Dan Gurney, he was spraying champagne all over me, and I grabbed him by the arm as we were walking off the podium, and I said, I want to race for you in '87. The beginning of 1987, my childhood hero, I was his driver.
What a grand performance Willy T. Ribbs is giving with what Dan Gurney has learned about how to put a car together.
In auto racing, there's always rivals. Roush was in IMSA, and he was looking for a guy that was going to compete against Willy T. Ribbs.
I raced a full season with Roush Racing.
Here is Bruce Jenner, the Ford Mustang.
These Toyota guys and the Chevy guys all were Ford drivers.
And I have heard of this kid, Scott Pruitt. I'm looking at this kid as a winner. So I said to him, I would love to have you drive with me. I just started this relationship with Ford Motor Company, and they really liked him.
Scott Pruitt was Roush's new fair-haired boy. He had orders, beat Willy T.
Drag race to the start, won by Willy T. Ribbs in the 99 car.
I thought Pruitt, with that big Mustang, would have the horsepower to get to turn one in first.
Roush said to his pilot, make sure Ribbs doesn't win that race up in Portland.
Jack Roush says, no bones about it. Scott is the best driver I've ever had. Willie takes that as a personal insult.
Scott is here to put the pressure on the Toyotas. We're willing to see his car not finish if we have to in order to keep him under the maximum amount of pressure.
Roush says, in the last fuel stop, go after Willie. You know, he was in the lead.
Scott Pruitt, who is 1 or 2 laps down, right behind Willy T. Ribbs.
Pruitt was behind me, ran in the back of me, spun me out.
Oh, here's a little action in turn 9. It's Willy T. Ribbs
and Scott Pruitt.
Scott Pruitt. Looks like they might have gotten together there.
Gave me a flat tire, cost me winning the race.
That spin was very, very costly, especially for Willy T. Ribbs.
Guys raced you clean the whole race, and you're taking them out for the victory. That's bullshit.
I pulled in. Dan stalks me. He says, hey, don't go down, don't say anything, don't run down there, which I didn't. As I'm walking down the parking lot pathway, here comes Bruce Jenner and Scott Pruitt.
And then all of a sudden I look up, and what's in our windshield and on the front of the car so we can't move forward? Willy T. Ribbs.
I stood right in front of their car, and I grabbed Pruitt, and I nailed him.
Bam! Bam! On Pruitt. He jumps out of the window, and I look at him in the rearview mirror, and there he is standing there, just like ready to go.
Jenner gets out of the car and comes at me. I told Jenner, I said, look, you threw the spear in the Olympics. I said, I'll take that same spear and put it up your ass sideways. I said, just get back in the car.
And me, I'm like, I can't believe this. I've never been in a fight in my life. God gave me fast feet so I can get out of trouble. I was like, boom, I was gone, you know?
There was a girl that was sitting in the center. Pruitt uses her as a shield. They went to the press room and said, I hit the girl. I hit Pruitt. They said, oh, you hit her as you were trying to hit Pruitt.
And since he was still on the racetrack grounds, they suspended Willie.
I was suspended without any due process. Never had a driver been suspended from IMSA. The IMSA officials, Jack Roush, Dan Gurney, we all got in one room, and Gurney stuck his finger into Roush's face and said, let Ribbs and Pruitt handle it and stay out of it. That was the end of the on-track battles. I didn't want to beat Scott Pruitt. I wanted to beat Jack Roush. He cost me a championship, and I hadn't forgotten. Dan Gurney's objective was to win the Manufacturers' Championship. Toyota wanted that Manufacturers' Championship, and they wanted to beat Ford, and I wanted to beat Roush.
We've been through 16 races, and we're 2 points apart in them. So really the whole season, as far as the Manufacturers' Point Championship, has boiled down to one race here in Del Mar.
This is for all the marbles. This couldn't be any bigger if it was a Larry Holmes, Mike Tyson fight.
450 horsepower, Willy T. Ribb. 600 horsepower, Scott Pruitt. The green flag waves. Give it to Pruitt as they head down to the corner. Now you're back with the leader, Scott Pruitt, in the number 11 car.
But these were two people that were equally matched.
Willy T. Ribbs' car as he tries to close up on Scott Pruitt.
These are guys who've shaved so much body work off of each other by fighting and pounding.
Great move by Willy, and he did it. Oh, Willy has sideways. Fine. Scott Pruitt is going to hold his ground, and he makes it work. Great piece of driving. Just over 2 seconds separate Pruitt from Ribbs. Laps quickly running down.
Here we go, down the front straight. This is the best shot he's had right now.
The checkered flag has come out, just as Scott Pruitt made his thrust, but Willy T. holds him off to the line.
Tremendous. I think that has to be the best GTO race we have seen this year.
Nobody celebrates victory like Mr. Excitement, Willy T. Ribbs.
Willy did a fantastic job. He had the desire. He wanted to win and become a champion.
We won the Manufacturers' Championship. I was IMSA Driver of the Year.
Imagine winning the Manufacturers' Championship for Toyota, winning it for Dan, winning for your idol. This is fairy tale stuff at this point of Willy's career.
I was starting to feel I've done everything I need to do. I need to start working on my ultimate goal, IndyCar.
Very few drivers had rides because they were just good and they got paid. You had to find money. You had to find the sponsors.
Gotta have a rich daddy, or you gotta be a good salesman.
You need a patron, someone who's willing to pay the bills, because it's so frickin' expensive.
I get a phone call from my dad. He said Bill Cosby called for you.
I saw Willy drive, and I think that Willy should be playing with the big fellas.
He's the most famous man in America, America's father at that time. The Cosby Show had been the #1 show for years. Remember, this was over 20 years before anyone learned of the crimes Cosby kept all to himself.
Later, I was in Vegas. He answered the door, and he lit a cigar, and he sat down on the couch. What do you want to do? I said, I want to go to Indy, and I want to race IndyCar Championship. He said to me, how much is it going to cost me up front? I said, $500,000.
Cosby said, I'll help seed this project to get it started, and And I believe through my name, my stardom, I can attract sponsors who will then really start to fill in the big sponsorship gaps.
He is a fine driver, and he should be given an opportunity, and he should have one. And it's very, very strange that he doesn't have that yet.
Cosby was a spokesperson for Coca-Cola.
Coke is it.
Cosby goes down there personally, met with him. They aren't interested in racing, blah, blah, blah. In reality, well, they're not interested in sponsoring Willy T in racing.
600 miles in the Coca-Cola 600.
He had Coca-Cola, he had Jell-O, he had Kodak. It took a few years. We got no support, nothing.
Willy always worked hard at his career. He worked hard to hustle his money. He worked hard to meet people and try to build his packages, to bring people in.
Corporate America turned their back. There was a guy by the name of Derek Walker. He had ran the factory Porsche IndyCar team. That deal was over.
Colorblind, someone who is looking for the best possible driver he can work with.
I must have been, crazy to think that I could just go and start a race team, but that's what I did. Somebody told me Willy T. Ribbs has got some money and he wants to go to the Indy 500. I bumped into him and mentioned, shall we talk?
So I called Bill Cosby and I said, Derek Walker is available. He knows how to put a winning team together. I said, let's get him.
Bingo, we had a program. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had a start, and that's all it took.
Derek Walker was assembling a team right away for the 1991 Indy 500.
If you're looking to run an Indy car, you're looking for millions. With Cosby being willing to contribute $350,000, you would not want to go any lower than that.
It's no secret that to be competitive in today's IndyCar racing requires a tremendous amount of money. Just consider today's going rate for a 1991 chassis is $305,000. Engines are close to $100,000 each. Tires cost about $900 a set. And at Indianapolis, you'll need 20 sets.
When you were at Walker Racing in 1991, a brand new race team, you had hand-me-down equipment from other teams, engines that weren't necessarily brand new. You were at a disadvantage from the moment you rolled that car on the racetrack.
If you're with a smaller team like Walker Racing, if you could buy a half of a hot dog for lunch and save money, you would.
We went there with just enough money to get there, basically, and as you know, the whole month is a high pressure, high money, and a lot of work and a lot of pieces you need.
The disparity in budgets between the big and small teams is rather huge.
I had less of a budget to go to Indy in 1991 than I did in 1985. I had Miller Brewing Company in 1985. I had just Bill Cosby's money for that one race. With the $350,000, Derek Walker found a used 1990 Lola.
It was in sad shape. We had to rebuild the car as well as, put the engine in and all that stuff. So that was our only means. We couldn't afford anything else. That's the only choice we've got.
Derek Walker and his marketing guy wanted to change the color. They wanted to have it bright and chartreuse, and you could see it 20 miles away. Why? I don't know. The color was, on a bright day, you needed glasses to look at it. Race cars are supposed to be Ferrari red. It's supposed to have some sort of macho racing look. Well, this thing didn't look macho at all.
He's got this car that he thinks is ugly, but everybody in the grandstands thinks it's beautiful because you can see this yellow and red car from all over the place. But you knew it wasn't the best equipment in the world.
And Indy, just like any other form of racing, you've got to have the right car. And if you don't have the right sponsorship and the right car, you just can't shine.
So if you're going there with half the money that some of these other teams have, you can just pretty much figure that you're not going to be as fast as them. Unless you have the money and the resources and the people as good as the guys you're trying to beat, you're not going to do it.
I had a group, though. I knew we were going to be strong.
Tim Wardrop was our engineer.
The communication difference between Loeffler and Wardrop was night and day. He had won Indy 3 times as an engineer. His intelligence was unreal when it came to setting up an Indy car.
Before a driver climbs into the car, straps in, and drives off, you have an engineer. Tim Wardrop is going to make sure the car has the best suspension settings possible, make sure that the car has enough air pushing the car to the ground. Those wings, both in front and back, they're like inverted airplane wings. And when that wind hits it, it sucks the car to the ground. Those are all decisions made by the race engineer.
He was getting my thoughts on how I liked a car. And then at the same time, he was telling me what I would feel. This is what you want to look for in the car. That was invaluable.
Willie saw Tim Wardrop as right up his alley. He was, for us as a startup team, a godsend because we didn't have an army of engineers. We had one guy. It clicked with Willie.
Meet Willy Ribb. Willie hopes to be the first black driver in the history of the race.
When we found out Willy T was coming back to try to qualify, everybody was excited again. The buzz was back. Our guy was back.
There was a lot of hype around Derek Walker Racing coming here and coming with Willy Ribbs. Bill Cosby's involved. There's just all this craziness.
How much has Cos had as far as input? He hasn't been here physically, but do you talk to him?
Well, we've been getting Jell-O sent to us every day.
Willie had been waiting for that good ride that we all strive to get. It wasn't coming around for him. He loved the sport enough that he goes, look, I'm going to take a gamble here and go with a car that I don't think is quite up to par.
The first day of time trials, the run for the pole, and in many ways, the second most important day of the racing year.
So qualifying for Indianapolis, it's called the month of May. While you're at Indy for a month, you run every day.
And every day, you're showing up at the racetrack, and you're trying to find speed.
So they practice and see how fast they can go, and then they qualify. There's 4 days. You qualify the first day, that's up front. Second day, it's going to be behind the first day qualifiers. Third day, behind second day, and the fourth day, so on.
The third weekend of the month finishes out the field, and the top 33 cars make it. Everybody else goes home.
Most races, they take your fastest lap, and they take your qualifying speed. At Indy, 4 laps you have to run, or 10 miles. And in that 10 miles, they take your average speed against all the other drivers' average speed, and that's how you qualify. That's where the testicles come in. 10 miles. Anything could happen in 10 miles. Anything.
At Indy, you've got 3 chances to qualify with each car. For the bigger teams, they're going to have multiple cars. They're multiplying their chances. If you're not one of the wealthy teams, which was the Walker experience, you've got 1 car. You've got 3 chances. You lose any of those 3 chances, temperature starts rising, and the odds of you make it in the show go down drastically.
The track is open for qualification.
We purposely didn't qualify on pole day because Derek wanted to get more track time. Tim Wardrop wanted to get more track time. And so we went to the following weekend to qualify.
At that time, the rules allowed you to go with a Buick turbocharged engine, and it had more power.
And Derek thought, and Wardrop thought, look, let's get some horsepower out of this thing. So we went to the Buick engine. Buick's a bigger engine, it's heavier. That took a few days to get done. So I was losing track time because we had to totally change the car.
Came out the second week, started running.
Up to speed, 2 laps, get her up to speed, get her going. If it don't feel right, just get on the radio, put your hand up, we'll wave it off. But, you know, 3 attempts, so no rush.
Okay. No problem.
Right on the ballpark.
All right.
listen for that valve in case that valve blows off. Just bag it back a bit if it does come up.
Okay.
Should be all right. Nice and consistent.
The engine had lots of power when it was going, but it never went too long. It was like a ticking time bomb.
Looks like we have a blown engine. Yeah, looks like Willy T. Ribb's.
Buick engines in this era were 6-cylinder, turbocharged fireworks. This was a bad, bad situation.
People are actually feeling really sorry for us because they just look up and here goes Willy again. Big cloud of smoke.
That's the only race I found since I've been racing that there's camaraderie among the drivers. There, you almost have sympathy and empathy for each other. They look at each other with total respect and total understanding because of the nature of the beast. One of the most important people that came to see me was Joey Ray, awesome race driver, who happened to be African American. A generation before me who never got the opportunity. Joey Ray was a badass, on dirt, on oval. Joey Ray was awesome. He came to my pit, and he was standing behind the road. I walked out immediately, and I said, "Why are you standing here? Come in." "Oh, I didn't want to bother you." Bullshit. Every day that you come straight into the garage. He gave me a lot of confidence, just his energy. I was so honored to have him there. Every day he would come, and every day he was in my pit. During the month of May, you meet a lot of people that you've never met before.
Rick Mears is a 4-time Indy champion. Willy went over and talked to Rick during this qualifying, trying to get the car to settle down.
Rick Mears had noticed that I was making my entry to the corner too soon. He said to me, "You're diamonding the corner. So I want you to bowl the corner. I want you to get to the corner and right to the last second. Don't turn down early."
Rick Mears became a school teacher, said, "Willy, you need to do this, 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 and this."
Just with that one little move, I picked up 5 miles per hour, just like that.
Unfortunately, the reliability of the car has not been as good as Willy's speed has been.
We wanted to go out and find out if there was any problems. Then, you know, we have a little bit of a clutch problem right now, so we want to get that sorted out.
When you start Indy with $350,000, your money's already spent by the time you show up on a used car, used engine, used everything. As you crash or you blow an engine, things really start to get stressed. So what happens? Blows one motor. Another engine blows. We're talking 3 motors in total are blown.
We were out of engines.
I think there was a sense of pity that this wasn't deserved. I don't know how they kept going.
Derek Walker, his team manager and team owner who actually owns the car, told me last night, "Derek, I'm out of business."
Do you think he'll get in? What do you, I mean, just a gut feel. Are they going to make it or not?
It's so hard.
We were out of money and out of everything, and not knowing what to do coming down to the wire. And Buick really tried to help all of its teams that ran its engine. Scott Brayton's team, who was a Buick team, they had an engine there which was owned by Buick.
Through a lot of phone calls, a lot of pleading on Derek Walker's end and others lobbying Buick to step in. "Hey, is there something you can do? We've got nothing left. We don't have money to buy ourselves out of this problem. Can you intervene to help us?"
The Buick Motorsports representative did not want to give us another engine. He said no. And there was some squeezing, some nut squeezing on Sunday. Somebody got their balls squeezed real hard. and how bad it was going to look if Buick didn't have an engine for me. And we had an engine.
And then it's bump day. This is your one last day to get into the Indy 500. More than 33 cars showed up. The fastest 33 take the start. Everyone else goes home. End of story.
It was a nerve-wracking experience because you always had more cars than you had positions. So we were really worried at not being fast enough and not getting a chance.
Got a problem early in the morning with this new motor. Oh my God. We broke another motor yet again.
You're right. Just smoke.
We're dead meat. We got to go home.
No. It's not your fault, gosh. We told them it was laying down on us, so.
The thing was just, it was laboring the whole time, and when I went out this time, the thing just died.
Did you just lose power, or did you feel mechanical?
It lost power.
And no boost?
No boost.
So it might be in the turbo.
When the turbo blows, it's not just replacing a single part. It's concerns about did metal shavings and other things get into the oil system. So rather than just unbolting a broken piece and putting a fresh one in, the team almost has to do a forensic investigation and lose more time.
But the point is that at 6 o'clock this afternoon, Indy time, it's all over. There are no more chances to make the show. Probably the wildest roller coaster ride of the month in terms of emotions has been experienced by Willy Ribbs, attempting to become the first black driver ever to make the race.
Getting into the race is going to require an average speed of about 217 miles an hour. He had been over 210. It might not sound like much. It is night and day difference.
We were searching for the speed and it wasn't coming easily, and Willy was getting very frustrated, quite dejected that we can't do it, man, we can't do it. It's just not going to happen.
As of the spots are left.
Field is full.
Okay, who hasn't run?
We've got Didier, you, Randy.
Randy's not running.
Huh?
Randy's not running.
They're putting another motor in it.
Are they?
I heard.
It took a lot of resolve. I had to really look inside myself and say, all right, you got to deal with all this, but you got to keep going, and you got to keep your edge. You got to keep that toughness that you were taught by your grandpa.
Tim Wardrop showed Willy a set of tires and basically said, these are special.
The tires that he called magic tires, he says, I've been saving them, and I've kept them wrapped up in a closet. He didn't want anyone in the team to know where they were until that final day.
Willy thought, wow, he's got special tires. There's something, he's done something to those tires to make him really fast.
If you ask any driver, if you tell them special, they all want special. To a driver, this is the magic set of tires. These are going to do it.
When you think that, it makes a difference. And you will go out and go faster. Honest to God, it happens. Oftentimes your brain and what you think will stop you. Good engineers know this about drivers. We're all that way. We are going to be limited to what we think is our limit. It's a brilliant move. It's a dangerous move.
So I want you to go on out and in, make sure they're balanced, all the wheel rates feel fine. They were like glue. They were like glue.
This morning we were struggling around 210, 211, and we're scratching our head. We haven't changed a thing, and then we found out we just had a bad set of tires. And as soon as we strapped tires on, we got going straight away, 215.
Truth be known, there probably was 2 or 3 sets that were magic tires.
At the end of the day, he just made the stagger a little differently.
The fact that Tim was able to tell Willy, for once this month, we have a secret advantage for you that is going to help get you into the show. That's the one thing that Willy never had.
We pushed that car down to put it in line for qualifying.
Willie made 2 incomplete attempts, and so he was down to the final strike.
Tim Wardrop says, "You ready to go?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Strong like bull, cool like cucumber. Let's go do it." He had tears in his eyes. He had tears in his eyes. So I said, everything will be fine. It's going to be fine.
The pressure that Willy Ribbs had to have felt in that qualifying effort has to have been more than any other driver in the history of the Speedway.
If I did not get it done with this last run, I might never make it back to Indy, ever.
There was just huge buzz in the air as he went out to make his final attempt.
15 minutes to go before 6 o'clock. I went out, going down the pit lane to enter onto the racetrack. All the USAC turn workers and marshals there, they all salute you. One black worker there, older gentleman, he was crying. He was crying as I went by him. I turned away. I said, I can't look at him. It's going to make me cry.
Without doubt, it is certainly his lifelong goal that is on the line here in the next 4 laps. The time he must beat is 213.189.
I fucking drove that son of a bitch into turn 1, an opening lap, and I pegged it.
Willy Ribbs on the front straightaway at Indianapolis takes the green flag in this historic effort to become the first black man ever to drive the Indy 500. The bubble speed you saw, 213.189.
I said to myself, this is it. Do or die, Ribbs. Do or die.
Backstretch 219. Now, I'd like to see that a little bit faster. Of course, the speed he comes off the turn at depends on what his straight line speed will be. Turn 3, 216. This could be a good lap.
You run that motherfucker flat out.
The first lap at 217.8, and the crowd goes crazy. They love that announcement. They're really pulling for this guy.
As a matter of fact, I put my left foot on top of my right foot. He said, that's just the way it's going to be.
My word, everybody in the front stretch here cheering Willy T. Ribbs on 217 faster than he has ever gone here at the Speedway.
And if I crash this motherfucker, this is how they're going to find my fucking feet.
217.997. Ribbs is flying. The white flag falls. He is 2.5 miles from history.
I'm either in the race or you peel me off the cement.
He's almost there. 2 more corners, turn 3 and turn 4. Willy T. Ribbs looks as if he's in the field.
Ribbs down. Nothing can go wrong now. He can coast into Indy 500 history. The checkered flag falls. Ribbs has made it.
I looked up and I saw all these arms. And that's when I realized you did it.
An incredibly long and difficult month, and here you see them backslapping, handshaking. They have certainly earned this moment of history.
It was a madhouse. The people in the bleachers, people all over the track. It was a celebration. As I was going down the backstretch, I felt like a king. I felt on top of the world.
Those folks who qualify last are some amazing, amazing drivers. They took out some equipment that some of the top guys would not even dare set foot in.
And then something happened that you never see at the Speedway. Everybody in pit lane, the mechanics, the crew members, other drivers, officials walk out to greet Willy as he's coming down pit lane. one of those magical moments in the 100-year history of the Speedway.
And I'm coming down, and I see all these people waving their arms, and the mechanics from the other teams were giving me a salute, and all these arms from other teams, and I could tell that they appreciated it. They were part of the celebration. They were part of the moment because it was historical. It was something that never happened in Indy 500 history. It was something that never happened in the sport of auto racing.
Willy Ribb has made history at Indianapolis, and America stands to honor him as he climbs out of the cockpit. It is truly a memorable moment here at Indianapolis.
I never saw Jackie Robinson break the color barrier. I never saw a lot of blacks do a lot of historic things, but I got to witness my hero qualify for the Indy 500. A sport that I loved, a sport that I wanted to be associated with.
I got to see Willy T. Ribbs become the first African-American to qualify for the greatest race in motorsports. I got to witness that with my own eyes. I was there. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it.
Joey Ray was in the pit, and he had tears in his eyes. And he said, "You did it." I said, "No, we did it. We did it."
The team never gave up, and that was tremendous. They never gave up, and I wasn't going to give up.
Gentlemen, start your engine.
Emerson Fittipaldi, A.J. Voigt, Willy T. Ribbs staring into history. And the 75th Indy 500 is underway. And there is an accident coming off of the fourth turn. Coming off of one, there is an accident. And Willy T. Ribbs comes into the pits.
I went out in 1991 with mechanical failure. I made it back in 1993, and I finished all 500 miles. Those 500 miles meant everything. I wanted to show the racing world the color of my skin did not matter. I won. I won. I didn't win the 500. I won against all the obstacles and the odds that were against me.
Willy T. Ribbs is crashing. Willy T. Ribbs spinning.
Everything that I was dealing with, I was saying, I won. I broke down barriers that were not supposed to be broken down. All the trial and tribulation. The setback in 1985 from a bunch of guys that didn't want me to be there for one reason, and I knew the reason why. It all came to me. You didn't give up, Ribbs. It was worth it.
There is no sport more exciting than racing. This is it. This is the next best thing to heaven.